Joining me now here on ICANN Media is Joe Roberts, one of the keynote speakers here at the safety conference in Banff. Your topic was, why do we do what we know will hurt us? Explain to us the title.
Well, I think that it's really about asking the question, why do we do the things that we know will hurt us? You take a look at behavior that sometimes you scratch your head and you say, well, we know the rules. We know that's a dangerous place to be, or a behavior, but why do people continue to sort of entertain that when we know the potential risks?
So is it a risk-taking society? Is that like we need that for an adrenaline rush, or are we just careless?
I think that there's a number of different sort of antecedents to that. So some of it's culture. For example, when I take a look at, if I go back into my story, I'm a guy who took a lot of unnecessary risks. But a lot of that had to do with the culture that I belonged to. It was, it was a risk-based culture, and part of the price of admission was to do things that weren't necessarily smart. And I think that we see a lot of that in the workplace, where it's accepted, it's tolerated, and it's not that it's cool, but it's just not shunned. And those challenges unchecked, I think, go on to create an erosion, and that's where then you create an environment that's ripe for potential accidents and tragedy.
So when you're trying to get across the message to the group that you're speaking to here, a lot of people in the oil industry, what is it you're hoping that they walk away with?
I think a couple of things. I think it's the power of mentorship. I think that we see a huge succession gap here in Canada, and we see a lot of people being sucked up into management who are really, really good at technical skills. They're there because they've been promoted because they're good at what they do. When you take a look at leadership, it's a different skill set. Within health and safety, it's this ability to get buy-in, and so that's one thing. And I think that the other that's really critical is getting people to shift their mindset into the reason why I want to continue to do the things that are safe. If I don't have that, if I've got a culture where we're following the rules only when you're looking, it's kind of like an orange wave. So the compliance person walks through, and everybody is compliant as long as they're watching. But as soon as they walk away, there's this flow in and sort of a regression back to the old behavior, and that's because there needs to be that shift. There needs to be that buy-in, that reason.
You talk about the little things and how they can have an impact.
Yeah, I think it's. My story is a story of, made a lot of really poor choices, ended up on the street pushing a shopping cart and dealing with a serious substance abuse issue. When I go back and I look at that, it was false beliefs and myths that I believed in that led to that. This idea that alcohol and marijuana couldn't hurt me, this idea, this little thing that we were young and we were invincible. It's those little things that I think that create that environment that really builds complacency, and when complacency happens, it's in a blink of an eye when one of those little things can cost someone's life.
One of the things you mentioned as well is the lessons that we learn. In school, we learn the lesson and then we practice it. In life, it's a different story.
Yeah. So yes, in school you're given a lesson and then you're tested, but in life you're tested until you learn the lesson. And I think it's one of the tragic things within health and safety is that sometimes it takes that near miss or a fatality, or a disaster for people to snap back and take a look at it and go, wow, this really happens fast. And if you take a look at conferences of this nature, there's often people like myself and others who have made those mistakes that have the most to teach us. We don't learn as much from success as we do from failure.
Speaking of success leads me into the next question, because you had 3 points on success and how to achieve it.
Well, the model for success is simple. Okay. Choose what you want to do, get busy doing it, and don't stop till you succeed. Problem is, human beings are not simple. We bring a complexity. When we're looking at trying to get people to change, there's the actions that we need to take, but there needs to be a buy-in to purpose and inspiration. And then there's also the acknowledgement of roadblocks. So we can get really busy and get active in a particular endeavor, but if we're not connected to a purpose, it's only going to take us so far. We're only going to see, maybe a small blip in behavior change, and then we'll always see a regression to the mean. I believe that the way to get people over long-term change, sustained change is really tapped into purpose.
Joe, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rob.
We've been chatting with Joe Roberts here on ICANN Media.